Yo, reference getters, welcome back. Today, you can see that we are doing the Pokemon Battle Revolution Rank 8 Trade Battle Tier List. You know the drill. You play through Pokemon Battle Revolution, you're like, hey, let me go grind up some fun little trades here. Let me go to the trade battle, just get some fun mans. Once you reach the top, somehow, don't ask how you're going to pull that one off, what are the best Pokemon available? Today, we're going to be looking at the mons and see, hey, what's good? What works? Yeah, what should you aim for? What do you need to look out for? You know, that kind of fun stuff that I totally did not promise a couple months ago that I'm just now finally getting around to. This will be for singles only. However, there will be a few exceptions where we're not talking specifically about singles, but like getting certain movesets through doubles or some other means, because it will make a difference on the Pokemon and their viability. And the first mon has a small example of this, Venusaur. Venusaur is a grass type, so it's kind of lacking. The grass types typically aren't that good, but Venusaur is definitely not a phenomenal one. For its move, it's basically locked into Petal Dance. That's not really the greatest thing you want to be locked into. Sludge Bomb's nice, it helps it beat other grass types. And then if you're in doubles, you can actually pick up Earthquake for it pretty easily. It's kind of underwhelming. It definitely does its job at like handling non-Ice Beam water types, and that's really all you really want it for, than like, what, grounds or grasses. Alright, next mon on our list. Oh, here's a steep up in quality. Big step up. Charizard, A tier. Charizard is pretty fucking good. Here's what makes Charizard nice. Fire type's massive. Flying type's nice. You can cheese him out with Air Slash. Like, Charizard is just strong. It can use the weather if you want it to while using Sunny Day. It has the sauce it needs to perform well. That's basically the gist of it. Blastoise. Like a lot of the water types we're going to see on this list, it's definitely not a bad mon. It's not going to be in D tier. A lot of the water types are going to have this one thing in common. It's pretty fine. Amongst the water types, it's kind of okay. It really just uses Waterfall with not the greatest attack stat in the world, and Avalanche. Its moveset really leaves a lot to be desired. But all around, Blastoise, you can't really technically go wrong with it, but it's definitely not this big revolutionary mon that you should be aiming for. Because if you want a better water type for the job, we gotta talk about Feraligatr, who we're gonna cut the line for. Because this guy is basically just the same thing, but better. Because it also uses Waterfall, and is just typically stronger and faster. Which is kind of what you're looking for in a damage-dealing water type. Alright, getting our first D tier in here, we got Meganium. Meganium's problem is just that we know the problems, right? It's weak, its defensive typing's bad, its moveset's not the greatest. It's not the worst mon we're going to see on this list for obvious reasons, especially not the worst grass type, but it's just never worth picking up. Next will be Typhlosion. Typhlosion's issue comes down to its versatility. So basically, Zard has extra stab coverage and Sun Abuse. Meanwhile, Typhlosion is just Sun Abuse. It's just way too one-dimensional with not really that much defensive use going for it. Basically, if you're picking between it and Charizard, always just take Charizard. It's like, again, they have the exact same stat spread, so it's better to have the more usefully offensive and defensive one. Here's another fun mon to come into B tier, Sceptile. A fast, strong grass type. I mean, what could you really want? It's fast. You can run X-Scissor to help you deal with the dark types. You know, the very not so good dark types, as we'll see later. But it really just excels at just being a grass type, smacking those ground types, hitting the waters. That's basically it. It has Leaf Storm and Leaf Blade, which is very nice for mixed coverage, just in case you hit a Leaf Storm and need to use a different attack stat. It works. Its moveset is pretty solid, and it's fast enough to get the job done. Ooh, an A tier mon up next, Blaziken. What makes Blaziken so good is it's a strong and decently speedy, it's not that fast, fire and fighting type. Phenomenal coverage. Like, that goes without saying. The problem is, like, its attacks, compared to something we're about to see in a few minutes, Infernape, is not the greatest in the world. Blaze Kick is not the greatest attack to have for a stab move, especially in comparison to Flare Blitz. And Sky Uppercut's definitely not good to have in comparison to close combat. Again, it's basically just Infernape, but worse and slower. Oh, another A tier mon here, Swampert. Ooh, I'd argue this one's even better than Blaziken. Swampert has a phenomenal defensive profile. One weakness, it has water and ground offensively. That is just nasty. Man's got Hammer Arm, he will go crazy, dude. You know, sometimes you can get Rindo Berry. It'll be helpful. All around, Swampert is a menace to deal with. Definitely, when you're the team builder, plan to at least fight a Swampert in some form or fashion. Whether you're fighting with another water type or whatever. This is not a mon you want to leave unchecked. Ooh, next is Torterra. Torterra's an exception mon. It's not that great, but That's if you're picking it up in rank 8. Because in rank 8, they love to give them a Sandstorm stall set. Oh, you have Sandstorm, you got Toxic, you have a weak attacking move, like Bite, Tackle. It's not good. It is awful. But if you pick it up in doubles or a lower rank, you can actually get a set with like Earthquake and Razor Leaf and whatnot, and it's actually capable of damage. It can get some work done. It's just not the most advisable mon to use on a team. It's definitely a more specialized mon, and you never want to pick it up within the context of rank 8. Okay, here's our first S tier, Infernape. It hits really hard, it's fast, and hits in actually a very important speed tier. It's strong enough to get the jump on a important threat, Tauros, as we'll see later. It's a incredibly important matchup swing. That is one thing on its own that's helpful. Again, we'll see that with another S tier later, but Infernape hits everything hard. Hits the rock types hard, puts them down. Ice types, they're nothing but a memory. Its coverage is really good, and also it really helps with dealing with the Snorlax matchup too. Alright, here comes another odd pick, B tier Empoleon. Its problem is its speed and coverage. Sometimes it has like Drill Peck for a coverage move, right? With Hydro Pump and Flash Cannon as your stab moves, it's like, you kind of want something more useful in that kind of predicament. Like, what does Empoleon do for you when you're actually not using your 2 stabs, one of which is only going to hit ice types, and a type already being threatened by water? Not really the most useful coverage in the world. Good defensive profile, but it's a little slow, and it's a little lacking in the offensive department. Speaking of not having offensive use, we have the NFEs next. The not fully evolved Pokemon have one thing in common. They're not that good. Pikachu. It's too frail and provides nothing defensively. It can be useful for hitting something like Vaporeon or Lapras hard. Pikachu's basically forcing a light ball, which, yeah, it seems helpful, but like, don't kid yourself. It's too slow to even make use of it. But like, just use a better electric type. Good God, dude. Electabuzz is an odd one, because I would even argue it's better than Electivire itself. It's got a unique coverage profile. It's got weird stuff like Low Kick and Thunderbolt. Weird mix set. It's fast enough. The problem is electric types really aren't that good unless you're one of 2 specific mons. It's not even really a stacked category. It's just, hey, some of these just are not good. End of story. Ooh, next is Rhydon. Another mon that's not bad. The problem is, it has to compete with its evolution in Rhyperior. It's strong enough, it's got a decent defensive profile, and that's really all there is to it. Like, Rhydon's just, hey, it's Rhyperior, but worse, and the moveset's not as strong. Congratulations. Ooh, next Porygon 2. It's kind of a useless mon. It doesn't do much offensively. Like, I don't think it's this bad, but it's not the most helpful thing in the world to have. I would not recommend using Porygon 2 for any real reason. Speaking of not advising use of Pokemon, Dusclops. Yikes. Moveset-wise, this thing is just not good at all. You would expect for something like this to have, like, I don't know, some kind of good, like, stall moves. No, it's just, ugh. Okay, next we have a bunch of weather-abusing mons. And first up, let's have the Sandstorm setter itself, Hippowdon. Hippowdon's pretty fucking good. Yeah, it sensitive sand. That's a phenomenal trait to have if you actually have a sand abuser, Garchomp. We'll talk about that later. Or Rhyperior. Like, there's not really that much sand abuse you can do. And Hippowdon itself, super one-dimensional. It's got Crunch, it has Earthquake, and it's just a relatively physically defensive mon. That's pretty annoying to deal with otherwise. Definitely a good pickup, but yeah, Sandstorm can sometimes be a problem for yourself. Speaking of a very interesting defensive profile, Abomasnow, C tier. Think for a nice type like this, it would end up in D tier, but surprise, surprise, guys. It's a grass and ice type, so it's got one thing going for it. Actually being able to deal with the water types. Because it's not like it's weak to Ice Beam or anything, so but something the grass types struggle with. Overall, it's like, other than Hail Abuse with us, Glaceon later, it's pretty solid all around. But it's not really something with a defensive profile that's really worth relying on. Yeah, being able to match up fish for those water types is pretty important, though. Since, of course, there is a trainer that pretty much always just has a full team of water types. Ooh, next is Exeggutor. Exeggutor's profile is odd. I'm going to say it's a C tier mon because of how reliant it is on Sun. You set up Sun, congrats. You have Chlorophyll, and you are still slower than a lot of mons. Congratulations. Being able to threaten mons with Solar Beam and Psychic's a great coverage, like, option, but it's just lacking in power. Okay, actually, we're gonna do another tier. Yep, should have left it like this before. We have an F tier now. Cool. We dropped some letters down. We moved some guys around. Cool. Exeggutor's problem is it is really good threatening at things, but it just doesn't do much otherwise. All right, next is Magmortar. It's a strong fire type that relies on Overheat and White Herb. It sets up Sun too, in case you need that for some reason. Overall, it's kind of super one-dimensional, but it gets its role done pretty decently. Ooh, next is Garchomp. This is a controversial mon. It's like, it's not an Uber. That's the problem. It's not an uber-like and competitive. I want to say it's C tier. Yeah, like, yes, it can abuse Hippowdon Sand, but like, it doesn't naturally just like always have Earthquake. It gets Dragon Rush as its dragon move. That's super unreliable. Like, yeah, it gets Crunch, so you get at least something for coverage, but good god, its moveset's just not that great. Where otherwise, its stats and ability are pretty fucking good. Ooh, speaking of something that's really, really strong, Mamoswine. We're going straight to A tier with this boy right here. What it lacks in its defensive profile, it makes up for offensively. But what Mamoswine brings to the table is strong ground moves. Oh boy, hold on. Here's the problem. It's not guaranteed to have Earthquake. That's the issue. Because they sometimes divide them up into having a rock type set and a ground type set. It's got its Ice Fang and Hail as usual, and it'll have either Stone Edge or Earthquake. One of those is completely worthless, the Stone Edge set, obviously. But when you get a ground type set, oh boy, Mamoswine goes pretty hard. Speaking of weather abuse, next we got Glaceon. Yikes. C tier. It spams Blizzard, and I think it has Shadow Ball as well. Not really the greatest moveset in the world, or speed, but hey, Snow Cloak, you can have Bomb Snow set up Hail for you. That's something to at least make use of. Oh, next is an A tier mon, Jolteon. Dude, my opinions on this man has changed so much over time. Here's the thing. Thunder and Shadow Ball is really good coverage. Jolteon's got like a horrible defensive profile, right? It is bad. But when it makes up for that, it makes up for a threatening offensive presence. It's really fast, really especially strong. The problem is it lacks a coverage move. Like, it's got Shadow Ball and Thunder, right? But like, they typically give Rain Dance as its third move, so you can set up your Rain if you need it against like a Fire type or something. But then, like, what do? Your fourth move isn't even guaranteed. Yeah, you can get Thunderbolt. This thing can have Focus Sash too. If you get those, oh, it becomes even better, way better. Downright combine them together, S tier mon. But otherwise, definitely a strong A tier contender. Although Thunder's reliability is pretty not fun. Alright, and finally for our weather abusers, we have Leafeon, D tier. It clicks Leaf Blade and like X's her, right? Doesn't really do much. It's kind of bad. Doesn't have anything going for it defensively. At least it's stronger than Meganium is. Alright, moving on to some more fun stuff. We got Espeon. Bootleg Alakazam, and that is not a bad thing. It can have Choice Specs, which is absolutely nasty. Basically, its moveset's exactly what you would see on Alakazam. It's just Psychic, Shadow Ball, and things die. They die a lot. Espeon's only an A tier because it's just directly outclassed by Alakazam and provides a very, very useful strong roll. And it does have one issue of being in the same speed tier as Tauros, which is not good because that's a matchup that having Choice Specs will absolutely swing in your favor. If you're not max speed, and even if you are, speed ties can be a problem. That's one matchup you kind of don't want to mess out on. Alright, Umbreon, F tier. What does it do? It's too defensive. It provides nothing offensively. Also, that reminds me to move Porygon to up a tier. Alright, next is Vaporeon. Bulky water type. Moving on to our waters though. Vaporeon is strong, it has Surf, it gets an ice move, it's defensive, it's kind of nasty, alright? Vaporeon's pretty solid. Ooh, next is the Slow Twins. These guys are pretty neat. They have a fun defensive profile. And you know what? Starmie can join them too. Water Psychic is a very nice typing all around. The Slow Twins make good use of it by just being very just bulky and strong enough to get the job done. They will pick off what you need them to. They're like a decent 1-for-1 mon just because of their defensive profile alone. And their offensive presence as well. They got good coverage in terms of their water and psychic move. And then Slowking even gets some like interesting tech if you pick it up as well. Like Trick Room or Skill Swap, which can always be useful in some form or fashion. As for Starmie on the other hand, it's fast. It's not the strongest water type in the world, which is a problem. It makes it for a decent Espeon replacement if like you need it. Actually, okay, just because it gets Ice Beam, we're actually bumping up to A tier. Just having that coverage and it being relatively common enough to pick up, kind of big. It's a pretty strong and fast mon that can definitely be helpful in a wide variety of situations. But speaking of a mon that has no business being as good as it is, Gyarados S tier. Here's the thing, you want to pick it up in singles. Because picking it up in singles will guarantee it's got Dragon Dance, Waterfall, and Earthquake. The only 3 moves you need. If you can get something good in that 4th slot, congratulations, it's even better. Gyarados does everything you need it to. And it even has a bad habit of sometimes just beating down the electric types, just because of a Wakan Berry. This thing is not okay. Intimidate makes it even way more flexible than it has any right to be. And of course, it's just naturally strong and decently fast enough. Not an okay mon. You have to prepare for this thing when you're fighting it, just in general. And when you pick it up, oh boy, that thing sends it. Alright, speaking of another good water type, Lapras. It's just a bulky water ice type that just hits hard. Overall, it's pretty solid, but Alright, Walrein we're putting in C tier due to its moveset problem. Again, it has basically just the same kind of idea as Lapras, but if you pick up Walrein in singles rather than doubles, it has the issues of its ice type move being sheer cold. Yeah, you can make fun use of the gimmick move, but that's not reliable at all. If you pick it up in doubles, on the other hand, you get Blizzard, which is pretty useful, especially with Abomasnow's assistance. Overall, Walrein's pretty solid, but it's kind of sketchy to use. Okay, speaking of sketchy mons to use, Kingdra. Talk about a defensive profile. Only weak to Dragon, that's pretty useful. It can sometimes have Ice Beam, gets a Dragon and a Water move. It's pretty potent in terms of its, like, damage output, in terms of actually the typings themselves. Because stat-wise, it leaves a lot to be desired. Oh boy, 95 on basically everything that's not the HP stat? Ugh. Alright, remember what we said about Vaporeon earlier? Oh boy, Melodic. Basically it does everything Vaporeon does. Except its defensive profile is somehow even more annoying at times. Alright, next is Floatzel. Yikes. It's a water type. It's not F tier by default. It's got that going for it. And to round out the water types, we actually have Ludicolo. Ludicolo's problem is its damage output. It's got an interesting defensive profile, to say the least, of being able to handle a lot. Like Abomasnow, it handles a lot of the water types, which is super useful. So Energy Ball, it gets Surf, and that's really about it. It's an interesting mon. I would not rely on it too much. Alright, next up we have a strip of mons that are just bad. Talk about the worst mon around. What does Shiftry do? It fails as a grass type, it fails as a dark type. In general, dark types typically are not good in this at all, but hot damn, does Shiftry just fail across the entire board. And it has nothing defensively going for it, it's just fast and that's really it. It can beat the ghost types, but that's about it. Alright, next is Gramble. It's a normal type with Intimidate. That's really all you can ask for. It's all it does. It's too slow, it's not the most bulky mon in the world, and it hits decently well. It's only in D tier because of Intimidate. That's basically it. Unlike Licky Lick, who's F tier. What does it do? It clicks Slam. It's bad. Swellow. Dude, they just had to give you a Flame Orb, dude. It would have been that easy. Swellow does not have anything good going for it other than U-turn. That's got one move going for it, and everything else is just bad. It sometimes has Focus Sash, which is nice, but otherwise, it's bad. Alright, Bronzong at least has a defensive profile going for it. It's Earthquake sometimes, and it's your Steel Psychic type. What more could you really want? Oh no, next is Cradily. It is like bottom D tier. What does it do? It uses a grass move like Energy Ball, sure. But it just, like, it's bulky and just over-relies on Ancient Power boosting to do anything. Not very good, but I wouldn't call it an F-tier mon. But this thing is one of those mons that you need to be a little careful for, at least when fighting. Okay, Dusknoir. Talking about entirely outclassing its pre-evolution. Oh, Dusknoir does not provide too much of use. Yeah, it can get Earthquake sometimes. Having a Ghost type move for Shadow Punch is nice. Overall, it's very bulky, which isn't really where it wants to be. It can get like an extra coverage move as well, which is helpful. And of course, having access to Will-O-Wisp is pretty nasty in itself. Weavile. Oh boy, here's another exception mon, D tier. This thing was an F tier mon. And then you pick it up in doubles and it actually has a nice move. Yeah, if you pick it up in singles, it's gonna have Feint Attack. And that's really about it. Like, what, X's are for a coverage move? Ugh. If you pick up Weavile in doubles, on the other hand, you get Ice Punch, which is super useful for punishing stuff like Flygon and Salamence, Altaria, Garchomp. They're any of the flying types. Super nice to have. Like, on the other hand, right, it's fast, and then it just has, like, no defensive uses. Like, yeah, it's got one immunity, but that's basically it. Hard to use, but you can definitely do things with it. Ending the bad mons, going into flying types. Honchkrow this thing is, oh god, what does it do? D tier. Like, here's the thing. If I had an idea on what it was supposed to do, that'd be nice. It, like, uses Fly with Power Herb sometimes, so we can get the jump on the grass types, but, like, you're fighting an AI, it ain't gonna switch out. Well, it won't switch out most of the time anyways. Thunder Punch Metagross is, like, an exception. But, Honchkrow, it works sometimes. It's got its stabs going for it, at least. Alright, next is Aerodactyl, C tier. Defensively, it provides nothing. It is just a fast mon that does good damage sometimes. Wouldn't recommend it that much, but it gets the job done sometimes. Gets Stone Edge too, so you can fish for those extra crit rates. It's kind of nice. Speaking of a mon that's actually surprisingly better than it should have any right to be, Crobat. What is this thing's problem? Brave Bird, Cross Poison? Ew. Bulkier than it otherwise comes off as. It's extremely fast. Crobat's surprisingly good. However, like, the important matchups for it, it doesn't really help much in besides, like, the fighting type trainer who appears a lot. Well, otherwise, it's just kind of fine. Alright, next is Staraptor. Basically the same idea as Crobat. It's strong and fast. But this time, it also has Intimidate, and, yeah, it's a bird. What do you really expect? Next is also another mon that is honestly kind of surprising in its use cases. Togekiss. Hustle's kind of annoying because it means it doesn't have Serene Grace. But again, it is a Togekiss, so it's got some decent stats all around. Air Slash is kind of nice. Aura Sphere's good. And it even gets Water Pulse sometimes, too, to help throw some hurt on, like, Rhyperior or something last minute. Pretty useful mon all around. Ooh, and next is Yanmega, C-Tier. Speed boost sometimes, pretty useful. It's strong, it's got Bug Buzz, it does a lot. I think Air Slash as well. It's pretty nice, but defensively not offering much. And when it does threaten offensively is a odd selection to say the least. Oh, here's another mon that I'm debating A tier on, but we're gonna say B tier for now. Gliscor. It is a B tier mainly because of its lack of a flying move. It gets Earthquake, which is nice. Sometimes it's Poison Jab. Access to the Elemental Fangs. I think Ice and Thunder. I think Ice is like a rank 7 or 6 thing. Thunder is definitely a rank 8 move. And it's all around pretty damn useful. Stab Earthquake's never anything to scoff at. Ooh, Altaria, D tier. You know, it's definitely like the best D tier yet, but what does it do? Like, this is a Dragon Dance mon, but it is not threatening at all. What happened? At least it's got a decent defensive profile going for it, but otherwise, ugh. Definitely the best of the D tiers yet, though. Next is another A tier mod, Salamence, finally. Threatens a lot and Intimidate. Dragon Claw for a bunch of good neutral coverage. It gets access to some decent fourth moves, or some really bad ones. Again, it's really hit or miss on the fourth move with Salamence. And it gets Crunch as well, so at least you can hit the ghost types in case you need an emergency ghost type hitter. Kind of useful, probably on the lower end of the A tier for sure, but all around pretty solid. And for our last flyer, we have Flygon. And I'm gonna say B tier here. Flygon's problem is that it only really has two things going for it. Dragon Claw and Earthquake. Sometimes it doesn't even get Earthquake. First off, how? Second off, why? Third off, at least Flygon's got something good going for it in its speed, right? And some decent attack power. But they definitely leave a lot to be desired. Okay, next is an odd pick. Arcanine. Arcanine does one thing super nice. Intimidate plus spamming fire moves. Oh, this thing getting to throw out Flare Blitzes like it's nothing is super helpful. And it gets extreme speed as well for picking off weakened targets without taking damage itself. Extremely useful, hello. And of course, it sometimes gets Thunder Fang in case you need to hit like a water type or something. Okay, defensive profile. It's not the greatest in the world, it's just a neutral fire type. But that Flare Blitz Intimidate combo goes really well together. Okay, here's a mon I have next to no knowledge on. Machamp. C tier. It's a strong, slow fighting type. It's not, I don't even know if it gets No Guard. I don't think it even does. It gets Cross Chop a lot. That's basically all you're really getting use out of. I think Stone Edge as well, could be wrong about that. It's not very good. Machamp, it leaves a lot to be desired. You better thank your item for existing, Marowak, because without Thick Club, you would be awful. Good lord. Marowak probably shouldn't even be in the spot. But just because you can potentially get Trick Room through Slowking, it's worth at least putting up in C tier. Marowak hits extremely hard with Thick Club, but good god does it fail at basically everything else. It's just more risk reward than Altaria is, which means I think I should put Altaria up to C tier as well at least. It's kind of just a, hey, get as much damage as possible and don't die kind of deal. You might get 1 or 2 hits out of it, and that's basically it. Not the greatest mon in the world unless it's under like Slowking support through Trick Room. Not very good otherwise. Speaking of a mon that's all around very solid and important to fight in the team builder, Tauros. It's A tier. The problem with Tauros is its normal type move, because it's typically Takedown, which isn't quite the greatest move in the world. You can get these things basically guaranteed like every time just from the final fight alone. So you can actually fish for good Tauroses pretty frequently. They get Choice Band as well for some absolute raw killing power. Earthquake, Zen Headbutt, I think Iron Tail as well. I've seen Blizzard Tauros appear sometimes. And all around Tauros, it has stuff to work with. It's defensively, it's got some good physical defense and Intimidate, so it's good. It's pretty fucking good. Okay, another normal type that's strong and annoying to deal with. Snorlax, dude. Oh, God. If you've ever needed just, like, a mon to, like, cover just general matchups, that's, like, not just a fighting type, Snorlax is the mon to do it. It's bulky, it's strong, with body slam and earthquake coverage. It gets crunched sometimes, I think, too. It's just good. Plus, easy access to, like, leftovers, Choppleberry, any of that nonsense. And again, like Tauros being easily farmable for good stats. Kind of important. Very important, mon. Ooh, next is an odd pick. Scizor defensively is good, but like, it's C tier because offensively, it does not provide much. It's basically just Garchomp-like in this regard. It just, like, what does it do? Like, it gets Steel Wing. I think that's like it. Maybe X-Scissor? Ugh. Here's a niche mon, Heracross. We're going C tier on this. It's kind of fine. Really shouldn't go out of your way for it, but hey, if you get a chance to pick it up early or something, by all means. It's a strong fighting type. It can do some Salak Berry cheese at the end. It's definitely a risky mon to like play around, but all around, it's definitely not bad. All right, next, oh no. Urzaring, we're going D tier on this. It's a strong, slow, normal type. It's got Granbull's problem without Intimidate. It is not very good. Okay, it's better than, like, Swallow and Licky Licky, but just don't. Okay, here's a surprisingly good mon. Rank 8, singles, Slacking's an A tier mon. That thing hits incredibly hard. What you haven't seen about the Espeon matchup earlier, and Jolteon about hitting neutral targets as hard as possible to take them out in a single blow, that applies to Slacking. It just hits extremely hard with Giga Impact, and having Hammer Arm is also extremely good. And it gets a wide variety of fourth moves. I've seen Solar Beam on it, so it essentially has nothing for a fourth move. Thunder is sometimes bad. It gets like Rock Smash sometimes. It can have something useful. All around Slacking surprisingly good. It's odd. But man, does it get blanked by Gengar quite a lot. All right. Choice Scarf is what saves Rampardos into C tier. Its problem is its speed, right? With Choice Scarf, it still has speed issues. You're not going to be able to get the jump on an Infernape. It's just not happening. There's a lot of mons Rampardos just misses out on building with outspeed, and it's just not the most useful thing in the world. But it does get Rock Slide. It does a lot. It gets decent coverage moves. It's kind of mid-tier because you can definitely make it work, but okay. Stepping up from being better than its pre-evolution, which probably should have been tier up, but hey, it's fine. B tier for Rhyperior. Oh, Rhyperior gets some strong moves. And it gets to sit in the way of the normal types that don't have Earthquake as well. Disgusting, man. You like Mega Horn, Poison Jab, Earthquake, Rock Blast to get around Charty Berry? Ugh. Rhyperior, it's pretty damn good. Alright, here's another D tier electric type, Electivire now. Oh, it clicks Giga Impact and Thunder Punch. I don't actually know what else it gets. I think Earthquake's a move. Like, what does it do? It has better coverage than Electabuzz. But physical electric types, are you joking me right now in this climate without Volt Tackle? Are you kidding me, Electivire? What are you doing? At least it has the advantage of being a decent switch mon in case you're fighting like a Jolteon, which just folds to it after getting a Motor Drive boost from Thunder. So at least it has like one niche going for it. Oh no, we have an S tier mon right now. Metagross. Oh boy, defensively, you are packing, my friend. Here's the thing, right? You know what Metagross gets that makes it a little too overkill? Explosion. Being one of the few mons to get access to Explosion is not okay with that stat line. And plus, that defensive profile, especially with like an Aka Berry or a Shuka Berry, it can pretty reliably get an Explosion off on like the most dreadful targets for you to deal with. Oh, are you struggling with the Tauros or Snorlax? Blow up on it. You want to use it for normal reasons like, I don't know, beating down a Vaporeon with Thunder Punch? Go for it, dude. Metagross is really solid. The first problem is 90 accuracy on its Steel-type stab, kinda lame. Sometimes it has a mixed set where it has Psychic instead of Zen Headbutt, which is extremely cringe and kind of not good. But otherwise, Metagross definitely sure is packing. Alright, next is Gallade. It's a fighting type. You should probably be using Heracross instead, but it's a fighting type. It's a decent speed and decent special defense. Like, it's a good counter fighting type mon. But otherwise, like, it's a odd matchup fish for sure. Oh no, Gardevoir. This thing's speed cripples it so much that it's C tier. Just straight up. What it lacks for in its defensive utility, it makes up for it with some strong Psychics and Thunderbolts as well. Otherwise, it's just kind of fine. Maybe it can take a special defensive move. That's about it. It basically can get, it's like a decent one for one mon against special attackers, and that's really it. And of course, any slower mons like Machamp or any other fighting types, for instance. But speaking of a psychic type that is completely fucking dumbfound, if you thought Choice Specs Espeon was good, wait until you get the better version of him. Choice Specs Alakazam, if you pick that guy up, you are tearing through anything that doesn't resist it. Especially if it's like modest as well, where it gets to completely tear through any neutral targets and some frailer resistant targets. It is just not okay. And then it's also incredibly fast and a Shadow Ball for coverage, so say what you will, Alakazam is busted. Plus, like, it can do some Bright Powdered Calm Mind stuff, so you got that going for it at least, and Double Team as well. Also, Alakazam, extremely sketchy to fight. Dark types are definitely helpful for that regard, and outspeed it, yikes, or take a hit from it. For the love of God, you gotta be careful around that thing. Okay, controversial rank 8 Mon. Gengar is an odd Mon. It's got a ground immunity, immunities to fighting and normal. It does not actually get access to Sludge Bomb, at least typically. It typically has Hypnosis as a third move, and Psychic and Shadow Ball as its main 2 attacking moves. Gengar is a good offensive like cleanup mon. It can definitely just come up out of nowhere and definitely save you in a game. But hot damn, does it not handle like taking damage from like Salamence, for instance? Like that's not a 1v1 it wants to participate in. It's a sketchy mon. I think it could be argued for B tier, but we'll just say it's A tier. Okay, next is Miss Magius. Ghost type, so it's got some things going for it. Levitate as well, nice. Similar defensive profile to Gengar, that is. Shadow Ball and Thunderbolt. It's fast enough. It's offensively not as strong as you'd hope it to be, but you know what? It's a Miss Magius. You gotta be grateful for that offensive typing anyways. Alright, Ninetales is a C tier mon. Nothing really useful defensively. You can set up Sun with Sunny Day. It's Nasty Plot and Flamethrower, which is a pretty strong, just spammable niche. Obviously, you're probably going to have to switch out of a lot of things, but it's a fire type, dude. If you need a bare minimum fire type, Ninetales is not the worst choice in the world, but like, just if you want that, just use Typhlosion. Okay, next is Lucario, B tier. Moveset is odd. There are some Aura Sphere sets, and there are some Focus Blast sets. One will always miss, and the other will never miss, because, you know, that's how it is. Overall, it's a pretty odd mon. It has some great matchups, but yikes is it lacking defensively. Good God. Okay, next is PZ. Porygon Z, you are a C tier. Imagine giving this thing adaptability, but no normal type moves. That's the sad life Porygon Z has to sit in. No Hyper Beam, no Tri-Attack. It gets some good coverage moves, but like, you're missing on the one thing that makes Porygon Z so threatening. Overall, Porygon Z is just not the greatest thing in the world, but it's still pretty strong and decently fast. Tangrowth, my son, I wish you were good. D tier. What does he do? Like, it's just the epitome of being a mediocre grass type. Tangrowth's got like this mixed coverage issue. It gets Power Whip and Sludge Bomb. What does it excel at? Nothing. Overall, Tangrowth sometimes decent against the water types that don't have Ice Beam, but ugh. Oh, here's an A tier pickup. Magnezone. Hell yes. Magnezone is a sketchy man. It's defensively really good. It's a fucking steel type. What do you expect? You know, good defensive stats. Offensively, it's got a meaty special attack stat. Good lord. Of course, having Thunderbolt, great. And it'll have a steel type move. Won't be the most useful thing in the world, but you're using it for a bulky electric type anyways. And the last mon I have marked as a rank 8 mon is Blissey. Blissey has 2 types of sets. It has its single sets, which are soft-boiled, with Psychic and some nonsense to just stall out the opponent and actually threaten them, while the double sets do Toxic Stalling and have no healing moves. Huh. Gotta rely on leftovers with those, and it's incredibly sketchy. Blissey single-handedly invalidates so many special attackers. It is not even funny. It is an S tier just to be able to just straight up just invalidate them existing. In fucking saying that, mon. It is not okay. Obviously, the soft-boiled set from singles is better. Good lord, who thought this thing was okay? Alright, so we have a few mons that are marked from rank 7, or, well, one of them, or 2 of them might be from rank 8, and I just don't actually remember, so So we'll touch on those two first, just in case. Rapidash. Oh, it's just a bad fire type, man. What does it do? Like, it's not an appealing mon at all. Just use Ninetales, but at that point, just use Typhlosion or Charizard, please. Or, I don't know, the S tier Infernape, sure. Drapion and D tier. Well, it's a defensive dark type, so it's at least got that going for it. Just a mediocre dark type that's frail. It's got D tier at least going for it. At least there's that. Absol, you are using it because you want a dark type. It is D tier. You should just use Drapion at that point. Armoldo's got a odd defensive profile. It's also a D tier mon, but being able to use like your rock stabs and your bug ones is kind of nice. It's a little foul, I'm not gonna lie. Okay, looking at how this tier is developing, we're gonna drop Marowak down. All right, 3 more remain. Tentacruel, we're going C tier. It's a fast, specially defensive water type. I don't know really what else you would want, but if you don't think Melodic's fast enough, use Tentacruel, I guess. Overall, pretty neat mon, but there's just better water types. Next is Roserade. Pretty unique offensive typing. Grass and Poison's pretty good. Having Sludge Bomb and Energy Ball's pretty nice. Something the other grass types kind of miss out on. If you're using a grass type though, it's like, don't. There's just not that many good ones. Roserade's not a bad one to bring up from a lower tier, but I mean, it's something. But then, ladies and gentlemen, the final mon. The Legend of Wobbuffet S tier right now. Wobbuffet can patch up any bad matchup you have. It's not even funny. If there is a matchup you struggle with, put in Wobbuffet. Is your team gonna lose the Tauros? Slap the Wobbuffet in. Sometimes Wobbuffet can even pick up 2 kills from 1 life. That is when you know that it is good. Wobbuffet's just incredibly good. It is such a safe matchup mon. You bring them in, take something out, it potentially takes something else out, and it is just nasty. Basically, it's a glue to any team. If you have any issues with anything at all, just slap a Wobbuffet on there. What's the game gonna do, huh? And ladies and gentlemen, that is all of the tier list. So now I'm gonna attempt to organize them in a way that's like, hey, these like the best ones out of all of them from worst to best. That's gonna suck, but hey, I'll try. And there, ladies and gentlemen, you have the list. The top 11 to the top 88. I tried to organize them as best as I could, but there's only so much one person can try. And of course, we gotta get an editor's note right at the end here. Why? Well, it's pretty simple. I've been sitting on this footage for over a year now. As you may have seen, I gave up on editing this video halfway, and on God, I would have just never uploaded it. But I said, hey, you know what? Maybe I might not be able to get the game up to that prestige that I want it to, but I'll at least release it. Like, I'm never gonna finish it if I keep trying my hardest to get it to where I want. So hey, look, here we are. The video's done, kind of. You got your listing. Although, if I were to make some minor edits to the list now, you know, a year later or whatever, take Tentacruel, drop it down a little, because, like, its moveset's bad. Otherwise, Shiftry and Licky Licky, just swap those 2 around. Licky Licky does not do anything at all, and at least Shiftry can beat Gengar and Miss Magius, which are otherwise just annoying threats. Anyways, yeah, thanks for watching the video. Bye.